Welcome back to MFO, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. And it is the first week of August. And so we're going to do a best baits of August video here. And guys, these are all over the internet right now. You can go on YouTube and find all sorts of guys doing best baits for August. But I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to kind of give you the 5 baits that I would be using if I were going to head out on the lake today and spend a day in August fishing. Stick around, guys. We'll go over that lineup of those 5 baits when we come back. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher, and so we're going to talk about what I think are the 5 best baits for August. And like I said, the way I'm going to do this is, let's say I'm going out on an August day, a typical August day, and what are the baits that I'm going to have on my deck, and how is that going to work? Well, I'm going to tell you, the first thing that I'm going to do in the morning, early, I'm going to be throwing a topwater bait. And that topwater bait is going to be a bait that I can move around kind of quickly. So either a Zara Spook or something like a shower blower, some type of a topwater bait that I can move quickly, cover water. But guys, all of this is taking advantage of the fact that it's a hot August day. Those fish are going to, based on the evening, they've come up shallow to feed. When the temperature was low, they may still be hanging around those shallow feeding areas as the sun is rising. And so I'm going to take advantage of those low light conditions and throw a topwater bait that I can cover water, but attract those fish. As that sun gets up, then I'm going to be thinking about the fact that those fish are going to be moving deeper. So the next 2 baits have to do with targeting fish that are in those deeper areas, those brush piles and those weed lines that are in the deeper water, moving away from the shallows. And what do I use to do that? Well, it's going to be a crankbait. And so I'm going to move to something like a XD6 kind of crankbait, or deeper, depending on the depth zone that I'm trying to target. Now, I will say that a crankbait is one option. Another one that I'm kind of adding in as an option to this would, depending on the bottom content, would either be a Carolina rig using, say, a brush hog as a trailer, or a wobble head, kind of like a biffle head if it's more of a rocky type of bank. But in both of those situations, whether it be the Carolina rig or the biffle head, I would be using those kind of as a crankbait, meaning moving them rather quickly and feeling for bottom contour and looking for those aggressively feeding bass that are in the deeper water. The second type of bait that I would be using to target deeper water would be a drop shot, but not necessarily a traditional drop shot where I'm putting on a little Berkley flat nose power bait and using a light sinker. Instead, I'm going to do a couple of modifications. I'm going to increase the weight of my sinker so that it's heavier. I'm going to increase the length of my leader so it's a little bit longer. And I'm going to use a worm as my bait, typically either a Senko or a orange or methylate colored trick worm. And I'm going to hook it wacky style. We've talked about this in previous episodes. So I'm just using, and I'm going to set that up wacky style. And now I'm going to be pitching this into, I'm going to be doing what we called power shotting. And we, again, look it up, go back if you want. We did a whole episode about this some time ago, power shotting, where I'm flipping this bait into deeper weed clumps, weed lines for those fish that are in that deeper weedy area in the summertime. Flip it in, jiggle it around a little bit. If it doesn't work, reel it up, move, flip to another patch of deeper grass. And this is a finesse technique, but you're fishing it more on a power scale. And this is absolutely a summertime technique that I would highly recommend, and I don't think you're gonna see or hear a lot about in other YouTube best baits of August kind of segments. So keep that in mind. So we've got our top water baits, we've got our crankbaits, and again, with those crankbaits, you could be throwing a Carolina rig or a biffle head. We've got our power shotting setup, and then there's absolutely no way that I wouldn't have a frog tied up. And I'd be looking at, once the sun gets up high, looking for lily pads, looking for overgrown weeds that have matted the surface. And boy, I'm going to spend the rest of the day looking for that topwater frog, hollow-bellied frog bite. And again, we had that episode that we talked about whether you use a popping frog or a walking frog. So kind of take a look at that episode to know which frogs to throw. Finally, the last thing that I would be throwing is a Wacky Rig Senko at docks. We had an episode where we talked about shade. Summer, you could literally spend a day in the middle of August just throwing at docks, and it would be productive. The one thing I will tell you is that I don't know that you will be catching the bigger fish in that, but there are always fish shallow, even if it's the dog days of summer. And the place to look for them are any places that there is shade, whether that be docks, whether that be bridge pilings and bridges, whether that be overhanging trees and things like that. Throwing a Wacky Rig Senko is a perfect way to get those fish to bite in those scenarios. And again, could you catch a limit just working shaded docks all day in August? Absolutely. They will probably be good, solid keepers, but they may not be the bigger fish. The bigger fish are probably going to either be on your frog or on your deep water crankbaits and things like that. So there you got it, guys. You've got topwater baits in the morning. As the sun comes up, you start to move to either your crankbaits or your Carolina rig, maybe biffle head. If that doesn't work, you start throwing that power shotting technique in isolated clumps of grass that are deeper. If not, when you come to that lily pads or those patches of topped off grass, you've got your frog, and then you can always hit those shaded areas, docks and things like that with Wacky Rigs and Senkos and things like that. Those are the baits that I would have on the deck of my boat if I was going out this Saturday to fish in August, and I'd be pretty confident that I was going to be able to find a limit with one of those 5 baits and with one of those types of patterns. Guys, I hope this information is helpful. We appreciate you tuning in every day to Mark Fisher Outdoors. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And we will see you again tomorrow for another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.